What's going on, guys? This is James Allen. Today, I am going to share with you my thoughts on Kaspa as a Web3 developer and as an investor. Before I begin, I'd like to give a special shout out to Stefan Wolf because he's asked me to do this video. So shout out to you, Stefan. I'm not sure if you're German. Are you German, by the way? Because my former business partner, William Wolf, his last name was Wolf. So I figured Stefan Wolf, maybe, you're German like my last business partner. Anyway, let's get into the Kaspa blockchain. So the first thing I've observed about Kaspa is that almost right away, I kind of noticed that it had a different DNA than other blockchains. What I mean by that is I noticed that this particular chain had high integrity, and crypto right now is filled with just scams. I'm gonna just be honest. There's a lot of scams, a lot of institutions who are taking advantage of the technical ignorance of the public. So all the time you're seeing founders dump tokens on the public and do very shady stuff with investors. But in the case of Kaspa, there was none of that. There was no pre-mine. There was no insider allocation. There was no founder token. There wasn't even a token set aside for the foundation. It was all fair game. It was all fair launch. So right away, that sent a message of high integrity and that they're anti-corporate. They understand that the corporate situation is really dire and hopeless because, again, there's no accountability these days. People are so corrupt. There's no integrity. People are so fake, unreliable, that I think Kaspa doing such a fair launch sends a very loud message to everyone. And that's the first thing that impressed me. Right away, it struck a different chord in me when I saw how fair a launch it was. And it kept that ethos throughout the other departments. For an example, when I looked at how much it costs to sort of get a validator going for Kaspa to become a miner, I was also really impressed because after some homework, I figured that you could buy a Raspberry Pi 5, and if you configure it carefully, you could actually turn that Raspberry Pi 5 into a Kaspa node. That's pretty spectacular, right? That's really cool because you don't need a heavy pocket to get involved. You could buy a Raspberry Pi 5. And if you know what you're doing, you could actually turn that into a node, right? And a desktop computer could easily become a validator for Kaspa. In fact, you don't need to host a machine at a tier 3 or tier 4 data center like you do an internet computer, right? You could buy a desktop or build your own computer and leave it right here at your house, right? And just leave it on 24/7 after you configure it. And there you go. You have a Kaspa node at your house. So again, the node machines are very affordable. The people can get involved. So, the average person can get involved as a node validator. And I really like that compared to internet computer where you have to spend $50,000 for a machine and then host it at a tier 3 or tier 4 data center, which is going to cost you another $1,200 a month. People can't afford that. So Kaspa, a Raspberry Pi 5 could do it, or a desktop computer could certainly do it with Kaspa. Another thing I looked at too is their token supply. I believe they have about, a max supply of 28.7, something like that. 28.7 billion Kaspa is the max supply, out of which 26.8 is already circulating. But more importantly, I looked at are the tokens concentrated in the hands of a few? And analysts already did that research clearly, and they found out that the top wallets own about 15% of that circulating supply. So that means 85% of that 26.8 billion tokens that's circulating is in the hands of the community, right? So the top wallets only own 15% of the supply. So again, another positive sign. It's showing an ethos of people to people, right? It's showing an ethos that they want this chain to be in the hands of the people. Another thing I really like too is there was no foundation steering the development, the future of the protocol, right? There's no Dfinity or Solana Labs or Ethereum Foundation or Input Output Hong Kong in the case of Cardano. There is no central entity steering Kaspa, right? Instead, the protocol will evolve through consensus by the developers and the miners. So again, I like the fact that there's no institution controlling the protocol. And What it lets me know as a Web3 developer is that I could put my project on this chain and not have to fear institutional failure, right? That's a very important point, right? Because if you're a Web3 developer and you're choosing a chain, one of the things that you're worried about is the foundation or the institution behind it going crazy, right? Like Dfinity has gone crazy. You guys saw me clash with Dfinity over and over when they started doing the whole caffeine AI movement. Almost 15 months ago, I was telling them this is the wrong direction. They were in at $10. Now they're like $3. They fell to like $2 a few days ago, right? So I've seen like how the builder can clash with the institution firsthand. And that happened with me with Dfinity, unfortunately. Not that I wanted it to happen. But the fact that I could put my project on Kaspa and not have to worry about failure from an institution is a huge sign of relief, right? Because it's like, oh, my movement, my vision can now move independently of an institution. And that's a huge plus for a developer. If you're a Web3 developer watching this, that's one of the major attractions about Kaspa. And from an investor standpoint, what this tells me, the fact that they're keeping it so people to people, what this tells me is that they're letting the traction grow from a cultural movement, not managing perception, right? Because institutions, what they tend to do, right, is they tend to manage perception, right? They always want to look like they're in control. So they throw up this facade to fool the public into thinking like, oh, everything is fine, everything is under control, or there's great traction, everything's great, the numbers are blowing up, right? So they're trying to deceive the public through marketing, right? They're trying to manage perception when there's no culture behind that particular blockchain, right? As opposed to Kaspa, because there is no lab steering the institution. If Kaspa's growing, it's truly from a ground up community cultural movement. And I really like that as an investor because I want the chain to be dependent on a culture, not an institution, because it's only a matter of time till the institution goes crazy, gets sterile, arrogant, and fails us all. In fact, that's the whole point of Web3. The whole point of Web3 is to remove us from these gatekeeping institutions, right? These crazy, arrogant, gatekeeping, prideful institutions that are trying to manage perceptions and fool the public so that they could extract wealth out of them. And Kaspa scores a major plus in that aspect. So the integrity, the people-to-people ethos, love it. Now, let's briefly get into the technology. I'm not going to spend much time on that because you could read articles on that. And I've learned that like the public don't really care too much about the technical details. I know some of you guys are nerds and you want to know. And if you want me to do a full technical dive into Kaspa, I could. Super chat me $100. I'm really busy these days, so I can't really spend too much time making a technical video or breakdown of Kaspa unless someone pays me to do it. However, I'll cover the three most important things you must know about Kaspa from a technical standpoint. The first one is block DAG, which is their data structure. That's the underlying data structure of Kaspa, block DAG. And what it is that, it allows multiple blocks to be processed in parallel. Rather than Bitcoin, which uses a single chain, one block is linked to another block. Kaspa allows a block to link to multiple blocks. So rather than a blockchain, you have what's called a directed acyclic graph. It's a graph. Directed means it only points forward in time. Acyclic means it cannot cycle back, so there's no cycles, right? And what this graph allows, because since multiple blocks are being processed in parallel, what block DAG allows is faster block time. The block time for Kaspa is 1 second as opposed to 10 minutes for Bitcoin. The propagation time is super fast. I believe the propagation time is like 0.1 second, so really fast. And I believe the block capacity is roughly around 400 kilobytes with a max of 1 megabyte. So with that block capacity and block time, you end up with something like, I believe 600 to 1,000 transactions per second. So pretty impressive, really fast. And that's what block DAG is. It's basically the graph that allows multiple blocks to be processed in parallel so that you have really fast block time. and stuff like that. The second technology you have to keep in mind of is GhostDAG, and that's their consensus algorithm. What GhostDAG does is it looks at all the blocks, right? And the well-ordered blocks, it puts them in a blue set. And the poorly ordered blocks, it puts them in a red set. And the blue set is considered the valid chain history, and the red set is the invalid chain history. And that's important because unlike Bitcoin, there's no orphan blocks, right? GhostDAG does not remove a block or cast away a block, right? It keeps everything, right? It just orders them into sets. The blue set being the valid chain history and the red set being the invalid chain history. So really interesting consensus mechanism. Again, BlockDAG is the data structure. GhostDAG is the consensus algorithm. The last one I think you should keep an eye on, of course, is Khash, which is their hashing algorithm. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it before, Kaspa uses a proof of work mechanism. And what Khash do is their proof of work algorithm. And it's really efficient. And what caught my eye is that it's ASIC resistant, right? ASIC is basically like special chips that are designed to do a specific type of work. So when a blockchain launches, people with money tend to buy computers with ASIC chips in it so that they could mine that particular coin very rapidly. But Khash is ASIC resistant, right? So it's a way of preventing people with deep pockets from monopolizing the game. And the fact that their proof of work algorithm was ASIC resistant was really impressive to me. Because like I said, I'm all a power to the people type of guy. So BlockDAG, their data structure, GhostDAG, their consensus algorithm, and Khash is their proof of work algorithm. Those are the three things you should look at if you want to know more of the technical details of Kaspa. Now, let's get into the bad, right? Because there's the bad, of course, the stuff people won't tell you. That is, as a developer, Kaspa is not really useful to me, right? Because it's a layer one that's meant to be primarily used as a settlement layer, right? It's not really, it doesn't really support smart contracts, right? You know, if you need programmable logic like I do for Cityscape, Kaspa is not the tool for that, right? It's just a settlement layer. So, you know, it's just meant to be a peer-to-peer cash system. Great if all you want is a token, but if you have a full dApp like I do in the case of Cityscape, right? You need smart contracts, you need NFT standards, you need user interaction, you need state tracking. There's a lot of things that I need that like Kaspa simply does not support. Now, they are working on a roll-up solution called Kasplex. It's a layer 2 roll-up solution. And Kasplex will allow EVM compatible smart contracts to be ported over to Kaspa, right? So you could write your smart contracts in Solidity, and through Kasplex, you could have, you know, the smart contract support you need, with Kaspa layer 1 being used as a settlement layer. But here's the problem with Kasplex. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, so let me know. Is Kasplex the correct pronunciation? Let me know in the comment section, Caspians. Anyway, Kasplex right now is still in testnet, right? It's still in public testnet. It's not in mainnet. It's not live in mainnet yet. So it's still in test mode. More importantly, when you look at the layer 1 of Kaspa, right, it uses UTXO, which is the unspent transaction model, right? Cardano uses a UTXO as well, right? So the layer 1 uses UTXO, but if you look at Ethereum doesn't use the unspent transaction model, right? It uses the account model, right? So Kasplex, you know, supporting EVM, but Kaspa being UTXO, there's a mismatch there, right? So that means like all your smart contract calls, all your state computation, state tracking, token logic, they're all non-standard, right? Because Ethereum uses account model and Kaspa uses UTXO, right? So they're all non-standard. You have a mismatch there. So it's unproven infrastructure. What I'm trying to say is their layer 2 is really unproven infrastructure. And for me as a developer, that's too risky. I can't risk putting my application on Kasplex, all my smart contract logic for the missions, the street pass, and the rap sheet, all the stuff that my users have, I just can't put it on Kasplex. There's not enough tools, and the tools that do exist, they're really unproven. Like it's unproven infrastructure. So would a Web3 developer use Kaspa? No. Their layer 2 is too unproven, and their layer 1 is not built to support programmable logic and user interaction like that. So no, I don't think a Web3 developer would touch Kaspa at the moment. However, here's the good news. Kasplex is still developing. Kasplex is still developing. There's still a bright future ahead of it, because if things get standardized, if the community really flourishes, then the layer 2 might allow all these things I'm talking about. And I would gladly use Kaspa as a blockchain for my project, because I don't have to fear institutional predation. Now, I did buy the token. I think I put I dropped like $1,300 on it. So I have like something like 27,000 Kaspa or something like that. That's an initial kind of like validation. I'm saying, okay, this is worth it. And I'll keep dollar averaging every month, because I do like this project. I do like how pure it is in terms of integrity. I like the team. And I believe they're also not too overfunded. Their mining launch, I think they raised like 691,000, and then they also got, I believe they got like $8 million from Polychain Labs or something like that. Like they got like $8 million. So they're not overfunded. $8 million, that's nothing. I like that, because if you look at Internet Computer, which raised 1.3 billion, I think overfunding kills innovation. So Kaspa has all the right signs. Its infrastructure, its layer 2 is just too unproven for me as a developer, but I am keeping an eye on it, which is why I dropped $1,300 on Kaspa, and I will keep adding every month, because I do want to track where this project is going. Now, if you're a Caspian and you would like me to do more videos on Kaspa, let me know in the comment section and super chat me whatever you want to prove me that you're serious. In any case, my misfits, that's all I have for you in this episode. You know what to do. Don't forget to press that like button and support me on Patreon. I will see you next time.